Immigration was once synonymous with hope. Today, in many places, it has become synonymous with tension. Cities are changing too fast, schools cannot cope, hospitals are operating at full capacity, and the housing market has become an unfair game. Communities are closing in on themselves, cultures are clashing. What was once integration is now conflict, and immigrants feel it too. They arrive full of plans but find closed doors, bureaucracy, prejudice, and invisibility. When they are not rejected by those who receive them, they are forgotten by those who brought them. Today, Bello Mundo will take you to 10 countries where rapid immigration has opened social wounds, divided communities, and pitted everyone against each other. It has become an urgent issue. Some you can already imagine. Others will surprise you, and the last one on the list will shock you. Number 10. Ireland. In recent years, Ireland has gone from being a country that sent its children away to becoming the new home for thousands of immigrants. Yes, it seems that the tables have turned. For decades, the image of Ireland was that of a people leaving in search of opportunities. But with economic growth, the arrival of technology companies, and a reputation for being a welcoming country, the tide has turned. Today, Ireland has become a coveted destination for those who want to start a new life in Europe. Currently, 12% of the population, representing almost 1 in 8 people, was born outside the country. Brazilians, Indians, Poles, Nigerians, Romanians, all arriving in search of something better. But the growth of the foreign population has been faster than the Irish infrastructure has been able to keep up with. The housing crisis has become a national problem. There is a shortage of homes. Rents have skyrocketed, and entire families have been living in rented rooms or makeshift shelters. Those arriving now find a saturated and often hostile market. Coexistence between locals and immigrants is already beginning to cause friction. In smaller towns, residents say they no longer recognize their own neighborhoods. In Dublin, protests against refugee reception centers have intensified, some ending in clashes. But immigrants themselves also face barriers. Difficulty legalizing their status, lack of job opportunities commensurate with their professional training, and a constant feeling of not belonging. Even though they speak English, many come up against an invisible wall: the preference for locals. Ireland is still far from experiencing a migration crisis like other European countries, but the signs are there, and if they are ignored now, the price in the future could be high. Number 9. Portugal. For years, Portugal was considered one of the most accessible gateways to Europe. A mild climate, lower cost of living, peaceful lifestyle, and flexible immigration policies attracted thousands of people from different parts of the world. However, in recent times, this once welcoming country has faced a difficult dilemma: how to continue to welcome people when the infrastructure can no longer cope. Today, around 1.5 million foreigners live in Portugal, triple the number of a decade ago. Between 2022 and 2023 alone, the number of Brazilians in the country jumped from 276,000 to over 500,000. This does not include entire communities from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, and Portuguese-speaking African countries. This rapid change has had a direct impact on the daily lives of the Portuguese. The number of foreign students in public schools has quadrupled. Demand for healthcare has skyrocketed, and the pressure on housing and social security systems is only growing. Many Portuguese complain that they can no longer get medical care quickly, that rents have become unaffordable, and that the increase in population has caused cultural conflicts in several regions. Anti-immigration rhetoric has grown so much that radicals gained strength in recent elections, and the new government has already begun to take action. In June 2024 alone, the government announced the expulsion of nearly 34,000 immigrants who had their residency applications denied. The justification is that the previous reception system was overburdened, lacking criteria and control. But the blame does not lie solely with those who arrive. Many of these immigrants came legally, in search of work, stability, and a chance to start over. The problem is that Portugal opened too many doors, such as the old mechanism for expressing interest, without having the infrastructure to handle the volume of people who showed up. The result of all this is a country divided between pride in being welcoming and the feeling that it has gone too far, too fast. The result of all this, a country divided between pride in being welcoming and the feeling that it has gone too far, too fast. Number 8. Canada. When people talked about successful immigration, Canada was almost always the example. A planned, multicultural country with infrastructure and a reputation for treating newcomers well. The formula seemed to work, until it started to weigh heavily. In recent years, the government has bet heavily on bringing in new immigrants. In 2022 alone, there were more than 1 million new permanent residents. The idea was to renew the workforce, boost the economy, and balance the aging population. But reality has knocked on the door. There is a shortage of housing, rents have skyrocketed, and public services such as health and education are operating at full capacity. Cities such as Toronto and Vancouver are saturated. What was once a source of pride has now become a cause for concern. Those who arrive often find a stagnant market, face barriers to validating their qualifications, and struggle to find decent work. And those who are already there are beginning to complain about the pressure on services and the loss of local identity. As expected, the debate has heated up. On one side, people are calling for more border control. On the other, those who still see Canada as a promise of a new life and defend the right of anyone who wants to come and go as they please. The country is still standing. But even the most optimistic admit that the Canadian model needs a break to catch its breath. Number 7. Belgium. Now occupying 7th place among the countries facing major challenges with immigration is Belgium, a small country, but one that has been accumulating tensions in its major cities for years. Brussels, Antwerp, and Liège are among the most affected. In many neighborhoods, environments of social exclusion, constant tension, and a growing distance between the local population and communities of Moroccan, African, and Middle Eastern origin have formed. This lack of integration has exposed a problem that goes beyond cultural differences. Organized crime has gained ground. The best-known example is the so-called Moroccan Mafia, an international drug trafficking network that emerged in Moroccan communities and now operates throughout Europe. But crime is not the only concern. Social division is evident in schools, hospitals, and even national symbols. In the under-15 category of Belgian soccer, for example, few players have Belgian ancestry. In other words, the country is changing, and not everyone is ready or willing to deal with it. On the one hand, there are those who advocate tougher laws and strict border controls. On the other, there are those who denounce the neglect of entire neighborhoods, where immigrant youth grow up without decent access to education, employment, or any real prospects for the future. Belgium is still trying to balance the multiculturalism it has always championed with growing pressure for security, identity, and stability. But maintaining this balance is becoming increasingly difficult. Number 6. The Netherlands. Continuing our journey, we now arrive in the Netherlands, one of the most liberal countries in the world, which today also faces the burden of an increasingly divided debate: immigration. For a long time, the Netherlands was seen as a symbol of tolerance, diversity, and civil rights. But in recent years, this image has given way to a more complex reality. Entire neighborhoods in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague have changed dramatically. In many of them, native Dutch people have become a minority, and with that came friction. The mass arrival of immigrants from North Africa, the Middle East, and former colonies such as Suriname and Indonesia has accelerated profound cultural changes. Integration, which once seemed natural, is now a subject of heated debate. While Muslims pray in central squares, nationalist groups call for the restoration of the so-called Dutch identity. Data shows that this division is not just a perception. Radical voices and identity movements gained strength in the last elections, with tougher proposals on security, borders, and population control. The tension is felt in schools, civil service exams, and even in national representation. In 2023, one episode became a symbol of this transformation. The title of Miss Netherlands was awarded to a transgender woman, Ricky Valerie Cole. She was born in the country and has ancestry from the Moluccas Islands in Indonesia. For some, it is a sign of progress. For others, it is proof that the country no longer knows who it is. The truth is that the Netherlands continues to function. But it does so amid a whirlwind of doubts. Doubts about the future, about the limits of inclusion, and about what it means to be Dutch after all. Number 5. Dominican Republic. Reaching our top 5, we cross the Atlantic and land in the Caribbean. But it is not for its idyllic beaches that the Dominican Republic appears here. The country is experiencing one of the most delicate migratory tensions in Latin America. The border with Haiti is a constant and often uncontrolled crossing point. Every day, thousands of Haitians cross illegally in search of a better life. They flee poverty, political instability, and extreme violence. But upon arriving in the Dominican Republic, they face another kind of barrier: prejudice, informality, and the risk of deportation. Today, more than 500,000 Haitians live in the Dominican Republic, many of them illegally. In some agricultural regions, the Haitian presence already exceeds that of the local population, and coexistence is not always peaceful. The impact is felt in hospitals, where Haitian women in labor crowd the public health system, sparking protests. In schools, the number of children who do not speak Spanish well is growing. And in the labor market, informality and exploitation are the norm for those without documents. The government is trying to tighten enforcement. In 2023, mass deportations resumed. But this is a chronic crisis that has been dragging on for decades and only getting worse. Among Dominicans, there is a growing fear that the country is being taken over. Among Haitians, the fear is different. Living in a place where they will never be accepted and unable to return home because it has fallen apart. A true hell on earth. The border between these two countries is more than geographical. It is social, historical, racial, and economic. And for now, it seems increasingly difficult to find a balance. Number 4. Italy. In 4th place in our ranking is Italy, one of the countries most affected by migratory pressure in Europe, and at the same time, one of the countries that has the most difficulty dealing with it. In recent years, the Italian coast has become the main gateway for those crossing the Mediterranean in search of refuge. However, this crossing, almost always made in precarious boats, does not only bring hope, it also poses a huge challenge for the Italian authorities. The crisis reached a critical point in September 2023 when the small island of Lampedusa, with less than 7,000 inhabitants, received more than 7,000 immigrants in just 2 days. The mayor declared a state of emergency, and the image was seen around the world. It was in this context that Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni made her harsh statement: "I will not allow Italy to become Europe's refugee camp." She also accused criminal networks of selling false promises of safe passage, comparing these organizations to death tourism agencies. The situation has become a central topic in the European debate. Italy is calling for solidarity from other European Union countries, but is meeting resistance. Meanwhile, the reality on the streets speaks louder. The reception system is overwhelmed. Suburbs of cities such as Rome and Naples have become areas of tension. Young immigrants grow up without integration, without real access to opportunities, and often without prospects. Italy is trying to balance compassion with pragmatism, human rights, and border control. But so far, it seems that the country is only putting out fires, and each new wave of migration rekindles the embers. Number 3. Germany. Now in third place on our list when it comes to immigration challenges is Germany. One of the world's largest economic powers, it has been trying for decades to resolve a dilemma: how to integrate millions of immigrants and their descendants into a society that often does not consider them to be truly part of it. After World War II, the country welcomed thousands of foreign workers, mainly Turks, who helped boost the economy. What was supposed to be temporary help ended up becoming permanent. And even after several generations, the children and grandchildren of these immigrants remain on the margins. There is a phrase often repeated there that says a lot about this scenario. If a duck is born in a chicken coop, it does not become a chicken. It remains a duck. This is how many Germans still see those who were born in the country, speak the language, grew up on the same streets, but have a Turkish, Arabic, or African surname. For part of society, these people will never really be German. This exclusion is reflected in statistics and in everyday life. There are entire segregated neighborhoods, underperforming schools, and high unemployment rates among young people with immigrant backgrounds. The tension is real and growing, so much so that many experts say that the riots that broke out in France in 2005 could easily happen here too. More recently, the mass arrival of Syrian and Afghan refugees has reignited the debate. The government has created reception programs, but has encountered cultural, economic, and political obstacles. Extremist groups have gained ground, promoting harsh rhetoric about identity and advocating large-scale deportations. The country that once rebuilt itself with the help of immigrants now seems unsure of how to live with them. Number 2. England. Second on our list is the United Kingdom, especially England. A country that once symbolized empire, tradition, and stability, it is now trying to understand its new identity amid one of the greatest social transformations in its recent history. Walking through London makes this clear. Entire neighborhoods have changed completely in just a few years. Diversity is striking and also fuels conflict. There are areas where English is hardly spoken, and longtime residents say they no longer recognize the place where they were born. The coexistence of different cultures, once celebrated as a symbol of tolerance, is now a source of tension. Outbreaks of xenophobia, attacks on refugee centers, protests, and religious radicalization have become more common. The United Kingdom remains one of the most sought-after destinations in the world, but the reality is different. The public health system is overburdened, the job market is more competitive, and access to housing has become a national problem. Against this backdrop, immigrants and their children are trying to establish themselves in a country that does not always accept them. The rise of extremism has also left its mark. Radical movements have grown with anti-immigration rhetoric, promising to regain control of the country. And for many Britons, immigration has become the scapegoat for everything from unemployment to the collapse of public services. Even in soccer, tensions are running high. In England's under-17 national team, 9 of the 11 starters have no direct English ancestry. For some, this shows a new, modern, and diverse England. For others, it is a sign of a loss of identity. The country is divided between pride and resentment, tradition, and change, and between those who see diversity as a strength and those who see it as a threat. Number 1. France. At the top of our list is France, the country that perhaps best represents the collapse of the European integration model. As in Germany, France also opened its doors out of necessity. For decades, it needed workers from North Africa, the Middle East, and its former colonies. They came to do the jobs that no one else wanted, to rebuild a country devastated by war and to keep the economy going. In return, they were promised opportunity and inclusion. But these promises were not kept. The children and grandchildren of these immigrants grew up in suburban neighborhoods with poor schools, few prospects, and a constant feeling of not belonging. They lived on the margins as second-class citizens. When they dared to challenge this, they were silenced with insults and labels such as illegitimate children and bastards of the system, among other aggressive gems. In 2005, everything exploded. The death of 2 teenagers, Zied Benna and Bauna Traoré, who were electrocuted while trying to hide from the police, was the spark. They were not committing a crime. They were just running away because they were afraid of a police force that, for many young people in the suburbs, represents more of a threat than protection. Cultural pressure became a ticking time bomb. The tension even reaches soccer. The French national team, world champions in 2018, was composed mainly of players with African roots. Of the 23 athletes selected, 14 had African ancestry, being the children or grandchildren of immigrants from countries such as Cameroon, Mali, Guinea, Senegal, Algeria, Congo, Togo, and Mauritania. For some, it is a symbol of diversity. For others, it is yet another reflection of the country's loss of identity. Today, France is trying to balance the ideal of equality, liberty, and fraternity with a reality marked by inequality, mistrust, and confrontation. It is the European country that feels the effects of failed integration the most, and perhaps it is the one that most needs to find a way out before the divisions become irreversible. And so we come to the end of our journey through 10 countries that, in different ways, are trying to deal with the impact of mass immigration. Let us know in the comments. Do you think immigration is really the problem? Or is the real collapse in the way countries choose to deal with it? So, don't forget to subscribe here at Bello Mundo, activate the bell, and of course, leave your thoughts on this list in the comments. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you on our next adventure.